Could you introduce yourself and what are the fields of investigation and the cause of your exile?
Okay. My name is Ilhan Pappe, and my main areas of research are the history of the Middle East in general, the history of Palestine in particular. So I'm a professional historian, and I have been researching especially the history of 1948 and the Israeli policy towards the Palestinians over the years. And because I came out with a historical version that criticizes Israel very strongly for its policies in the past and in the present, I got into ideological trouble, if you want, with my university that eventually resulted in my expulsion from my university in 2006 for subscribing to these views and this kind of research.
Do you think the Palestinian Nakba is a closed episode in history or that it has been endured in our times? And if so, in what manner do you think?
I think the Nakba is an ongoing event. Of course, it was very dramatic in 1948, but it continued since then in different ways. Between 1948 to 1967, the Nakba continued for the Palestinians who were living under Israeli rule. The Palestinian minority that was left in Israel was subjected to a very ruthless and oppressive military rule, and more than 36 villages were expelled at that period, so the Nakba did not end there. When 1967, the war of 1967 broke out, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were expelled again, and the Palestinian people in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip have been subjected to a similar military rule as the one that was imposed on the Palestinians inside Israel before 1967. And that military rule and that kind of oppressive rule continues until today. So, and it includes expulsions, it includes administrative detention without trial, demolition of houses, and so on. Familiar repertoire that I think most of your viewers and listeners are familiar with. But it's also important to explain that inside Israel, the Palestinians in the north and the Palestinians in the south are victims of a policy of Judaization that limits their space of living and may cause them to leave and to experience a Nakba in 2012. So this is an ongoing process that has not, unfortunately, has not ended as yet.
So, do you think that an apartheid system is being established in Palestine?
I think that in some places you have apartheid, some places you have systems which are worse than apartheid, like the siege on Gaza is far worse than apartheid, and I think some of the ways the Palestinians are treated in the West Bank are worse than apartheid. On the other hand, I think Palestinians inside Israel are not suffering as Africans suffered under apartheid. So you have to be more specific when one talks about apartheid, because in some areas it's worse, some areas it's not as bad, but depends. But I think all in all, if you think about apartheid not just as South African policy, but as an idea that one group of people doesn't want to live with another group of people and is willing to use every force, including every method, including a very brutal one, to isolate that other group, then I think the Palestinians in general are a victim of an Israeli apartheid policy.
So, do you think that a kind of improvement, some kind of improvement or advancement has occurred in the past 10 years to end with the occupation in Palestine?
Yes. I think the occupation has not been affected in the last 10 years. It's deepening. It becomes more normal, unfortunately, and we're very far from seeing an end to it. So nothing dramatic had happened on the ground, and the Palestinian uprising, the second uprising, Intifada, did not succeed to end the occupation as the first one did not succeed. I think the hopeful sign of what's happening in the last 10 years is the very significant shift in the international community position on Israel. That's the only thing that happened in the last 10 years which was positive, that the public opinion in the world has clearly moved to be an anti-occupation opinion, and that was not happening before. But on the ground, so far, it has no impact. The occupation continues and the oppression continues, and we still have to translate that shift in public opinion to some more actual policies on the ground.
What would you say to those who are that boycott campaigns are anti-Semitic?
I think it's nonsense. I don't think the boycott campaign is, or the BDS campaign is anti-Semitic. This is why so many progressive Jews are part of this campaign. If it had been an anti-Semitic campaign, they would have not joined it. I think that those who say it will say it on any critic on Israel. Anybody who criticizes Israel today is accused of being anti-Semitic. So I think it's not a very powerful argument. It's a very false argument, and I think we should not waste too much time on it.
How do you think the results of the US elections can affect the Palestinian conflict?
Unfortunately, I don't think in general that much is going to change, but it can be worse probably if Mitt Romney is going to be elected. If the Republicans are going to win, probably we would be closer to a possible war between Israel and Iran. Israelis would feel even more immune in pursuing their oppressive policies. There is a slight hope, but very little hope, that Obama in a second term would be a bit more decisive in his policies towards Israel. I doubt it, but we have to remain hopeful. But all in all, I think that in the next 4 years, I cannot anticipate any significant change in the American policy, but who knows? Who knows?
Thanks. What do you think it would be the solution of the Palestinian conflict? On the one hand, a creation of a plurinational state. On the other one, the creation of two separate states. Okay.
I think the best solution, and the one that I also believe will eventually happen, is a one-state solution. I think the two-state solution was a Zionist idea, and not a very good one. And in any case, the option has gone. Whether one likes the idea or not, the reality on the ground defeats the idea of a two-state solution. So we already have a one-state between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean. The question is, what kind of a regime would this state? Now we have a mixture of apartheid, ethnic state, that is not a just state, and we hope that the solution would be for a democratic state for all, justice for all, and that would respect also the collective identities of the people who live there. So I think the solution would be one political entity called whatever it will be called, and which may be of a different model than a European liberal democratic state, but would hopefully ensure both the individual and the collective rights of everyone who lives there and who used to live there, including the refugees. So such a solution has to include the right of return of the refugees, and we have to find a practical way of doing it. But we cannot even start talking about it before this becomes a legitimate part of the agenda.
And to end with the interview, are you working in a new project, or do you want to explain us if you are writing a new book or something?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yes, I do several things. I write a book now that hopefully will come out next year about the history of the occupation. That's one book. I've edited a book that compares Israel to South Africa. It should be out hopefully soon as well. And also a book on the academic production of knowledge in Israel, which is called The Idea of Israel. It should come up in 2013. So these are the projects.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.